Roughly 50% of small businesses don't make it past the 5-year mark, and that's for a lot of reasons, but a major one is burnout. As online business owners, we glorify the hustle, we wear busy like a badge of honor, and we really push ourselves to the brink trying to do it all until one day we crash. I think all of us have experienced burnout, maybe are currently experiencing burnout, but we don't talk about it enough, and it can feel really, really isolating. So in this episode, I am getting really raw and vulnerable about what burnout looked like for me, how I climbed out of it, and what I do now to try to make sure that I don't get back to that place in my life. If you are struggling with your online business right now, feeling like things are hard and you just don't want to keep going sometimes, you might be experiencing burnout, and this episode is endless for you. Welcome to the Six Figure Brand Podcast, where each week we're pulling back the curtain on what it really takes to build a six-figure business as an online service provider. I'm your host, Morgan. I'm a branding expert, online agency owner, mom of 2, and military spouse, and I'm obsessed with helping entrepreneurs like you understand the ins and outs of branding so that you can use it to grow your business without sacrificing your sanity. Whether you're just starting out or focused on scaling, we're diving into everything you need to build a profitable and sustainable online business. Let's get to it. So before we dive in, I want to preface this episode by saying that this is my personal and unique story with burnout, and that I am also not a mental health professional or counselor or therapist, and not really even a coach. So don't take any of this as advice. Take this as my experience that you can learn from and hopefully relate to. And if we want to start some conversations in the Instagram DMs, I would love that. So now that that's out of the way, let's get to it. I have always been a hustler. In high school, I got a job like the day after I turned 16. That's what age you had to be to work in my state. I took college classes while I was in high school to try and get ahead, and I worked at the same time. Once I actually got into college, I was taking the maximum amount of credits that I could and doing an internship and working and taking naps in my car in between. I get a lot of pride and sense of accomplishment from being busy, but being productive, feeling productive. And that's something that I really had to work on since becoming a business owner. I have this intrinsic belief that if I am not exhausted, I'm not doing enough. And I have been actively working at addressing that over the last several years. And it's for sure a work in progress. So I think the important thing to know here is that even before I started my business, I didn't really know how to exist without constantly striving for something. I thought that if you just work harder, everything will work out. And that's not untrue, but it's not totally true either. So my first experience with, we'll call it work-related burnout, was at my first corporate job after college. So all throughout school, I kind of had this vision of I'm going to graduate and I'm going to go work at some sort of marketing or ad agency. Imagine Mad Men, but present day version. And I did that. Before I even graduated, I had a job offer and it felt like a huge accomplishment. I was also the only person in my design program who had a job offer before graduating. So I was like, heck yeah, I'm doing it. I'm achieving. And I was really excited about it. And it took me 11 months of working at that job to realize this is not sustainable and I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. There were a lot of things that contributed to that. I think namely, I accepted a salary that was far too low for the amount of work that I was going to be doing because I just didn't know better and was excited to be offered any job. I also was naive to the fact that being a salaried employee really just meant that you had to work overtime and not get paid for it. And there was a really toxic work culture, not a lot of boundaries. It was expected that we would stay till 7 or 8 o'clock at night, come in on Saturdays. I could go on and on and on. And the burnout really started manifesting physically for me probably 7 or 8 months in. My whole life have struggled with migraines, but I was getting them weekly, if not multiple times a week, which was really abnormal for me. That was my first experience with anxiety. I really just resented coming to work, and I felt like this should be the best time of my life. I had my first big girl job. I'm wearing, the heels and the pencil skirt and doing the thing. And why does this feel so terrible. And I think the breaking point really was when I could see that it was starting to affect all of the other areas of my life. My relationship with my now husband, then boyfriend at the time, was struggling. My mental health was not doing great. I didn't really have like any life or identity outside of work. And that's when I kind of was like, okay, something's got to give here. And I started applying for jobs, and it took probably 2 to 3 months of actively looking for a job before I found something and was so excited to get the heck out of here. And it was so funny. And if you're in a corporate job now, or you've been in one in the past that's been like very unhealthy for you, you'll probably be able to relate to this story. But during my exit interview, the HR gal who was interviewing me was like, I'm just so surprised you're leaving. Like, I thought that you were really happy and that you loved it here. And I think the lesson, if you're on the opposite side of the table from me, is, I mean, I did tell people that I liked my job. I wasn't about to tell them like, I hate it here and I'm miserable and you guys are sucking the life out of me. And I think the important thing to learn is that people are not always going to tell you when they're unhappy. They're just going to leave. And similarly to your clients and your business, if they're like not super happy with the service they're getting or the product they're receiving, they might not say anything. They might just not renew their contract or not send their friends to you or whatever. So I think that it's important for us to be actively checking in with our people of, how are you doing? How are you feeling about things? Is there anything I can do better? Versus being shocked when they quit their job or they don't renew their contract. And from the burnout side of things, I think the lesson is that it's not just about, oh my gosh, I'm working so hard and I feel tired. I work so hard and I feel tired in my business all the time now. And that, for me at least, is not burnout. It's when you start hating your job or hating your business. The thing that you used to love or that you worked so hard to get starts making you like physically and mentally sick, I think, is how we know when it's burnout versus when it's just a season of hard work. And those are going to come. That's just part of the game in online business. So got a new job at a different company, same town, doing web design, which was really exciting for me because it was kind of a new area that I didn't have a lot of experience in. And the work-life balance was so much better. I was working 8:30 to like 4. I never worked on the weekends. I never worked late. They had like a quote unlimited PTO policy, which has its pros and cons, but it was a big improvement from the previous job. But I only realized this in hindsight. I didn't know what to do with myself with all that free time. So I immediately filled that void by starting to freelance. If you listen to, I believe it's episode 1, my like 6-figure journey in business, I talk more in depth about this. But yeah, it was only a few months into that new job that I made a profile on Upwork and was like, okay, let's start filling my free time with more work. And that is kind of one of the first places that I can sort of see that like my default is to make myself busy and to hustle and to tell myself to work harder rather than saying, oh, I have all this free time. I should use it to take a vacation or spend more time with my family or learn a new hobby. My instinct was fill it with more work. And that is really interesting for me to reflect on. So while I was building something and I was doing it on my own terms and it ended up serving me really well in the future, I think I was really struggling to get off that hamster wheel of constantly being busy and always needing to feel productive. So even though I had this great new job, I still didn't know how to rest. And that is something that I think a lot of us don't realize. Like, we have to actually teach ourselves how to rest. It's not just about sitting down on the couch and zoning out to a TV show. So now fast forward about 1.5 years, 2 years, I transitioned from being in my 9 to 5 and then like side hustling my business to full-time business owner. That was amazing. Like, still to date, one of my proudest accomplishments in my life. But it very quickly was followed by stress and overwhelm. First, I was stressed and overwhelmed by feeling like, oh my gosh, I don't have enough clients. I'm not making enough money. I need to spin things up. And then I did that and I spun things up. And then I was stressed and overwhelmed by having too many clients and not being able to manage it all and feeling like I was kind of free falling. I remember so distinctly having my first 10K plus month. And I didn't even realize it until like a couple weeks after the fact, whenever I was going back and catching up on bookkeeping and being like, oh my gosh, that was a huge, huge, huge milestone. And I just missed it because I was so busy and so drowning in my work. And again, same like physical manifestations, tons of anxiety, lots of headaches, couldn't focus. I would have to spend like 3 hours every morning, like psyching myself up to just go sit down at my desk and open my email. And it was not a good time. And finally, I still had a business coach at that time. And she was like, Morgan, something's got to give. You have to either let go of some clients hire some help, you have to do something, or you're gonna like put yourself in the hospital, basically. So I did both of those things. I let go of a couple clients that were like really big time investments and just not work I was super pumped about. And finally was like, the money's not worth it. Like if I'm not doing work that I love, I might as well just go back to my 9 to 5. And I also hired a VA, which in hindsight, I should have done probably 6 months sooner. I would not recommend hiring during a time in your business when you're already overloaded and stressed and too busy, because it's going to make onboarding them and training them really, really difficult. I lucked out with a great VA who really knew what she was doing, and it was okay. We survived. But I would highly recommend investing in support before you're at a point where you're desperate for it. I also hired in that period a couple of contractor designers to outsource some work. And for the most part, that was a huge disaster because same thing. I hadn't done the work to set up SOPs and really plan for how I was going to train them and be available to give them the support they needed as they learned how to do the job. So then it kind of turned into a situation where, yeah, I had these people helping me, but it feels like it's just creating more work for me instead of taking things off my plate. So if you're kind of in that stage where you're like, oh my gosh, my business has grown so much and it's killing me, I first want to tell you, like, slow down and invest in support. And if you are not yet there, but you can feel yourself kind of getting there, you don't have to wait until you hit rock bottom before you ask for help. I really, really wish I had done it sooner, even if it had meant making less money in the short term. Eventually, after hiring and getting rid of some clients and like getting things under control, I did find that balance again. It took probably, I want to say close to a year to really get to a point where I was like feeling creative and excited about work and was comfortable with the amount of money I was making, and things started to feel really balanced. And I know it wouldn't have taken so long if I had not waited until the 11th hour to ask for help. So what I learned from all of this is that boundaries and systems are really, really important, believe it or not. Now, some things that I do to prevent myself from ever getting back to that place of burnout where I'm having migraines and can't make myself look at my computer because it stresses me out so bad are placing really strict limits on how many calls I take in a week. So remember, during this crazy burnout time, I didn't even have kids yet. I cannot imagine what it would have been like going through that and also having a family to take care of. I had a husband at the time, but I mean, he's fairly self-sufficient. I didn't have anyone that was relying on me 100%. I can't tell you how terrible it would have been if that had been the case. So strict limits on how many calls I take per week. One, because I have learned about myself that being on calls and like quote socializing, I enjoy, but it really takes a lot out of me. Like if I have 3 calls in a day, which I do occasionally now, I need to do nothing else for the rest of the day to like recuperate. And also my time is so precious. Like every call that I schedule is time that I'm not spending with my kids, time that I'm having to find a babysitter. And that's fine. I'm willing to make that sacrifice because I love my business and it helps provide for my family, but it has to be really worth it to me. I also am a lot more comfortable saying no to clients who are not great fits. This has been by far the hardest one. It is really difficult when somebody comes to you and they have money in their hand saying, hey, I want to hire you for this thing. And you're like, well, it's not really something I do, or it's not really the type of client I work with, but like, man, I could use that extra income. Take it from me, it is almost never worth it. There have been a lot of times that I ignored some red flags in the name of making more money, and every single time I regretted it. There has never been a time that I've ignored some red flags and then been like, you know what, it wasn't actually so bad. So saying no to anyone who is not 100% heck yes client has been very liberating and great for my mental health. Getting really okay with not finishing things, not never finishing them, but not finishing them today, not finishing them in the time I think it should take me to finish them. I am in a season of my life where I'm working before my kids wake up in the morning and during nap time and while they're eating lunch, and I can squeeze in 20 minutes. And that means that I'm doing things bits and pieces at a time, which is not how I prefer to work. I would love to be able to sit down at my computer and power through something for 10 hours straight and tie a nice little bow on it and call it good. And someday I will get back to that. But right now, that's not where I'm at, and that might not be where you're at, and it's fine. We can adapt and we can learn to work in those small little pockets, and it's okay to leave things unfinished for a little while. And then finally, investing in support, even if it feels like you can't afford it, because your peace and your energy matter more. And when I say can't afford it, I am not saying that you should go hire a VA and put it on a credit card. But what I am saying is that you might have to get okay with making a little bit less profit for a while in the name of building your business in a sustainable way. There transparently have been months where I paid myself a lot less than I would have liked to, but it was never even a possibility in my mind to let go of my VA, because I know that she not only helps my business run more efficiently, but she allows me to be present for all the things in my life that I want to be present for that would not be possible if she were not there and I was having to do all the things that she does in my business. So kind of our theme here of what I've learned about burnout is that it's not really about doing less. Like I said in the beginning, there are still going to be seasons of your business and your life that you are just working really hard. It's about doing the right things, the things that align with the season of life that you're in, your values, your energy, how you want your life to look. Whether that's how many calls you take in a week, the type of clients that you're willing to work with, the way that you work. So, what's your schedule like, and where you invest in order to make things feel more manageable for you. So if you are in the thick of burnout, or maybe slowly trying to claw your way out, you're feeling anxious, overwhelmed, second guessing everything, I just really want you to know that you're not alone. It doesn't mean you're broken. It doesn't mean that you're doing something wrong. It probably means that you're trying to do too much for too long and you need to take a break and let somebody help you. And I also want to give you permission that you're allowed to redefine what success means for you. And it is okay to take a step back, take a little break, and protect your peace. Building your life in a way that is fulfilling for you and supports yourself and your family and who's ever important to you in the way that you want is more important than constant productivity. And I say that as somebody who is still to this day struggling with that. So I'm right there with you, and I get it. So this was a super personal one today. Thank you so much for listening and letting me share kind of a deeper behind the scenes part of my story. I really hope that not only this resonates with you, but that we can kind of collectively start to challenge the belief that burnout is just part of the deal. It comes with the territory. I don't think that has to be true. I think we are allowed to do business differently, and I think we should. So share this episode with a friend who you think might be struggling a little bit. Shoot me a DM on Instagram if this resonated, and I will see you next week. Thanks for tuning in to the Six Figure Brand Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, please be sure to rate the show and leave a review on whatever app you're listening on. And as a thank you, I'll send you coffee on me. Yes, I'm serious. As a smaller show for now, you taking the time to do this makes a huge impact on how we can reach more people and how I can continue to create this content for free. When you take a screenshot of your review, follow and tag me on Instagram at @SpectandCo. I'll send you a $5 Starbucks gift card. As always, don't forget to check out the show notes for any links or resources I mentioned during the episode. Thanks again for listening, and I'll catch you next week.